Chapter 1. Who will buy the terror of a 10-year-old orphan? 1934. New York City. The city is suffocating under the Great Depression. In Times Square, former stockbrokers sell apples for 5 cents each, while desperate bankers jump into the murky waters of the Hudson from unfinished piers. But inside the state Supreme Court, the atmosphere is different. It reeks of expensive tobacco and the sweet scent of Shalimar perfume. On an oak bench, curled into a ball, sits 10-year-old Gloria Vanderbilt. A reporter for Hearst's New York Journal, greedily rubbing his hands, has already approved the front-page headline. Poor little rich girl. Her life is an inventory of absurd luxury. While the country flounders in the gutter, Gloria owns an estate on Staten Island, apartments on Avenue Foch in Paris, and a $5 million trust fund. But she has no parents. Her father, Reginald Vanderbilt, was a dissolute gambler and Epicurean who managed to drink away his liver and the remnants of his fortune before his daughter was even born. He died when the baby was only 15 months old, leaving behind a mountain of debt and a legendary surname. And her mother, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, Golden Gloria, was a whirlwind of a woman whose motto could have been Après nous, le déluge. While America stood in breadlines, the elder Gloria flitted between the casinos of Biarritz and the private parties of the rich and famous. She changed lovers like gloves, from British aristocrats to German princes, and each new favorite cost her daughter's trust fund a fortune. Her closets in Paris groaned under the weight of Viennette silks and furs purchased with money meant for an orphan's education. She spent the equivalent of an average American family's annual budget on hats alone. Her neck was adorned with necklaces whose value could have fed an entire block in Harlem. Furthermore, she threw lavish balls at the Ritz, where champagne flowed like water while people starved on the streets of New York. But standing in the way of this reckless bacchanalia was Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, Gloria's aunt. A woman of steel, an heiress, and the founder of a museum. She was the embodiment of Puritan duty and cold calculation. What drove Gertrude to file for custody? Was it genuine concern for her niece? Or a thirst to seize the remaining millions and scrub the family name of the filth spread by this European harlot? To Gertrude, little Gloria was less a child and more a strategic asset, one that could not be left in the hands of a woman who confused motherhood with an endless social circuit. Judge John Carew closed the trial to the public, but the details shrieked through the keyholes. Maidservants whispered under oath about the mother's vicious associations, empty champagne bottles strewn about the house, and a little girl who didn't see her mother for weeks while she caroused in London. Gloria lived in the Whitney Mansion on West 8th Street, surrounded by the canvases of illustrious masters, but she felt like just another exhibit in her aunt's collection. She began to stammer. She was terrified of the dark. At 10 years old, she had already learned the primary lesson of high society. In this world, you are either the merchandise on the auction block or the buyer ruthlessly driving down the price. How did this blood-soaked circus end? In November 1934, Judge Carew delivered a decision that made America gasp. He declared the mother unfit, effectively branding her a fallen woman before the eyes of the world. Custody went to the iron-willed Aunt Gertrude. Little Gloria was allowed to see her mother only on weekends and under strict supervision, like a convict at a prison visitation. The reactions were worthy of a Shakespearean tragedy. Gloria Sr. swept out of the courtroom, veiling her face as the crowd jeered. For her, the tragedy was the collapse not of motherhood, but of her wallet. Stripped of access to the trust fund, the butterfly socialite instantly became an outcast. Her accounts were frozen, and her aristocratic lovers vanished along with the smoke of her last cigarette. Aunt Gertrude. She accepted victory with the icy composure of a sphinx. For her, the victory wasn't a triumph of love. It was a successful sanitization of the Vanderbilt brand. She gave a curt nod to her lawyers, refused to comment to the press, and ordered the girl taken immediately to the estate in Old Westbury, far from the flashbulbs. The reporters, Hearst and his bloodhounds, celebrated. Circulation skyrocketed. They got their dirty fairy tale, and they were indifferent to the child's fate. Tomorrow, there would be a new scandal for the front page. And Gloria? When the verdict was read, the 10-year-old felt no relief. She huddled in the corner of the Whitney car, clutching her doll. She had won safety, but she had forever lost the right to the truth. The newspapers celebrated the rescue of the poor little rich girl, not realizing that on this day, the child had simply traded jailers. As the trial ended, Judge Carew tossed a prophetic line to the reporters. "This filth will stay with Gloria forever." He was radically mistaken. Gloria wouldn't just wash away the grime of the past. Decades later, she would forge a reputation of an entirely different nature. Chapter 2. Can an aristocratic name survive on the back pocket of work pants? How is the character of a woman forged? One who is always impeccably dressed and perpetually in the crosshairs of the paparazzi? The decades between the courtroom and global success were no stroll down Fifth Avenue. Aunt Gertrude raised her with a cold, stern hand, almost by military code. Discipline, financial order, control. These were the pillars. In her aunt's art studio, Gloria learned a vital lesson. Art requires patience, an understanding of form, and a willingness to take risks. She watched a masterpiece emerge from a shapeless block of stone and realized that life, too, is material to be molded. Mistaken marriages to tyrants and geniuses became her universities of survival. Every husband tried to shape his Galatea out of her, but inside the poor little thing, the iron Vanderbilt core was hardening. She learned to manipulate the press, turning scandals into myths, and honed her intuition to understand one thing. The crowd wants to possess what is inaccessible to them. 1976. Manhattan. New York at the time was a roiling cauldron of filth, genius, and ambition. The city was bankrupt, but its heart beat to the frantic rhythm of disco. The air was a cocktail of burning rubber, cheap fast food, and uncollected trash. At Studio 54, aristocrats rubbed shoulders with drag queens, and the line between high art and plebeian style blurred under neon lights and Andy Warhol's gaze. Gloria was 52. Her past marriages to the tyrannical agent Pasquale Di Cicco, the illustrious conductor Leopold Stokowski, and the director Sidney Lumet had left deep scars, loud tabloid headlines, and a weariness with her former life. A penchant for grand living, lawsuits, and taxes nearly devoured her inheritance. But her energy was still electric. One day, in an expensive boutique in the heart of the city, a thought pierced her. Women want to be free like men and yet remain elegant. In a smoke-filled office on 7th Avenue, where typewriters clattered like machine guns, she met the entrepreneur Murjani. She later recalled a thick cloud of tobacco smoke hanging over him. Her throat burned and her eyes watered, but she had the strength to articulate her vision. People don't just want clothes, they want to touch a legend. I will give them my name. She decided on a move that would have made Gertrude turn in her grave. She took coarse denim, the fabric of dock workers' overalls, and tailored it to the female form with the precision of a Parisian couturier. She understood that jeans were the new uniform of freedom, and her signature was the seal of elitism for a new generation. 1978. An advertising blitz unlike anything the fashion world had ever seen rocked the country. Gloria herself stepped into the spotlight. She wore dark blue denim embroidered with a swan, a symbol of her fragility and grace. She wasn't just selling pants, she was selling the right to enter her circle. From Jackie Kennedy, hiding her eyes behind oversized shades, to housewives in Ohio, customers stormed Bloomingdale's, sweeping Vanderbilt's new sexy jeans off the shelves. Politicians at closed receptions in Washington sneered. Gloria had vulgarized the family name by turning it into a label on a rear pocket. But the numbers were clear. By 1980, sales reached $200 million. She moved into a magnificent townhouse on East 67th Street, walls draped in pink silk, adorned with Whitney's canvases. She was no longer just a Vanderbilt with a scandalous past, nor was she anyone's wife. She was the mistress of her empire. Chapter 3. What price does fate demand for the right to be happy? Gloria's fourth husband, the Mississippi writer Wyatt Cooper, was the only man she truly loved. Was this union doomed from the start? Wyatt Cooper was neither a tyrant nor a cold genius. He gave Gloria what no one else could, a home filled with the scent of fresh bread and genuine laughter. But in 1978, he died during heart surgery, leaving Gloria with two sons, the younger, Anderson, and the elder, her pride, Carter. Carter Cooper was the embodiment of the American dream. A Princeton graduate, an intellectual, and a promising editor. Between him and Gloria existed an almost mystical bond. They understood each other without words. But beneath the flawless facade of the prince of high society, a darkness was brewing. Following his father's death, Carter slowly sank into an abyss of depression that neither money nor a mother's love could heal. July 1988, a hot, sticky summer in New York. The air in the 14th floor penthouse felt like congealed honey. Gloria sat in the living room, looking out at the emerald green of Central Park. Suddenly, reality shattered. Carter, gripped by a sudden psychotic break, a side effect of new medication, burst into the room. His eyes were wild, unrecognizable. He bolted toward the balcony as if pursued by all the ghosts of the Vanderbilt name. "Mama, what's happening to me?" he cried as he ran. Gloria lunged after him. She fell to her knees, reaching out, pleading for him to stop, to come back, to take a step away from the edge. But Carter, freezing for a moment on the edge, suddenly vaulted over the railing. A second of silence. And then, the dull thud against the pavement that all of Manhattan seemed to hear. The next morning, the papers were out with blood-chilling headlines and photos of the sheet-covered body on the asphalt. The thriller of her childhood returned with a vengeance. The crowd, holding its breath, hungered for news of the famous socialite's tragedy. Photographers from the New York Post besieged her entrance, trying to catch a glimpse of a face contorted by grief. To them, it wasn't a tragedy. It was circulation and commissions. But the nightmare didn't end there. The tragedy was followed by betrayal, while Gloria, crushed by grief, drowned in mourning, those she trusted most began to scavenge the ruins of her life. Her lawyer, Thomas Andrews, and her personal psychiatrist, Christ Lurt, the men who were supposed to protect her mind and her assets, entered into a criminal conspiracy. Taking advantage of Gloria's deep depression and the fact that she signed documents without looking, they methodically emptied her accounts. Millions of dollars flowed into offshore accounts through a web of shell companies. When, years later, Gloria found the strength to look at the books, a terrifying picture emerged. Her denim empire was a crumbling shell on the verge of bankruptcy. The IRS was already at the door, demanding the immediate payment of millions in back taxes. "How is this possible?" she demanded of her accountants. There was no answer. The house in Southampton, the witness to her former domestic bliss, was sold at auction. The press, which only yesterday sang the praises of the denim queen, now chokes with malicious glee. The swan's empire sinks. Gloria Vanderbilt is ruined. The old gossip about the family curse triumphed. Vanderbilt gold inevitably turns to dust. Chapter 4. What remains when everything is taken except dignity? How do you recognize the devil when he smiles in your face for years? The IRS backed Gloria into a corner and almost accidentally uncovered the fraud. It was revealed that Thomas Andrews hadn't just stolen. He had built a complex web of front companies, forcing Gloria to sign blank forms during her moments of deepest vulnerability. The legal battle lasted for years. Gloria won a $1.5 million judgment, but the victory was bittersweet. Andrews vanished, and the money was never recovered. She was left with debts, forced to sell her luxury mansion and move into a small apartment on Beekman Place. It seemed the circle had closed. She was a victim again. She was almost exactly the same as she had been in 1934. But now she had Anderson. Anderson Cooper, her younger son, became the complete opposite of the fragile Carter. Hardened by family tragedies, he chose one of the most dangerous professions, war correspondent, and later became the face of CNN. Their relationship was devoid of social hypocrisy. Anderson didn't worship her surname. He respected her strength. He became her anchor, her most honest critic, and the only person before whom she didn't have to wear a mask. The 2000s. Gloria was in her 80s. She didn't hide in the shadows of past triumphs. Having lost a fortune, she gained something greater, the right to be herself. She picked up her brushes and began to paint canvases that were shocking in their honesty. She wrote memoirs and even erotic novels that left the prim aristocrats of the Upper East Side breathless. She was no longer a brand. She was a force of nature. In 2016, she and Anderson published their joint book, The Rainbow Comes and Goes. The world saw not a fading old woman, but a grand master of life. In their dialogues, there was no resentment toward fate, only the calm wisdom of someone who had walked through hell and kept the ability to admire the color of the sky. She outlived them all, her enemies, her husbands, and even the reporters who had hounded her as a child. She defeated time itself, proving that true wealth cannot be arrested, confiscated, or funneled offshore. On June 17, 2019, Gloria Vanderbilt died at the age of 95 in her Manhattan home. In her bedroom, there was no room for regret or elderly helplessness. Until her final breath, she remained an icon. Flawless makeup, a string of pearls, and that same gaze that had once hypnotized judges. The thriller Poor Little Rich Girl ended in triumph. She came into this world as a trophy, as property to be divided in courtrooms. She left as a woman who had bought her destiny back from the devil. The tabloid filth that Judge Carew once threatened her with never stuck to her reputation. Gloria Vanderbilt proved that one could be born a hostage to a legendary name, lose a vast fortune, and survive the death of a son, yet still refuse to let others define her destiny. She outlasted the wreckage of an empire, kept her right to choose, and left this world entirely on her own terms.